Hi quilting friends, I'm Linda Knitson from Sizzix here to show you how to make the bunny today. So the bunny is super cute and can be dressed up in anything from flannel, fleece, cotton chintz. You can use Shannon Minky fabric or Cuddle fabrics. It's a beautiful design. So let's get started on cutting that out. The die itself is comprised of the bunny front and back, the arm, the leg, and the ears. Now the front and back, it's actually the side and side when we sew it together. You'll need 2. The arms and legs and ears, you need 4 because there's 2 and you need 1 for each side. So we need 4. So we're going to lay the fabric on top. It doesn't matter if you lay it right sides together or if you lay your fabric with the pretty side showing. Won't matter because you're going to flip them right sides together anyway when you get ready to sew it. So we need a cutting pad on the top and a cutting pad at the bottom. And we need our Sizzix Fabby machine or a Big Shot or a Big Kick, or if you have the Pro machine, any one of those will work terrific. Just give it a couple quick turns of the handle. Slide your cutting pads off. Now these this was going to be our extras. We'll throw that away off the top. So we have 2 bunny front, or I keep saying front and back, but it's really side and side. And then arms. And if we need to, we give the little threads a clip so that they don't stick inside here. So now I want to lay them right sides together, and I'm going to take all pieces except the bunny body. I'm going to line them up right sides together, and I'm going to take them all and I'm going to give them a sew all the way around each piece. But I'm going to leave the top of the arm, the top of the legs, and the top of the ears open so that I can flip them inside out. Now all will get stuffing except for the ears. The ears are floppy. So right sides together. And you're right, if I had put my fabric on the die right sides together, I wouldn't be having to go back over it at this point. So when you get ready to sew the foot, you want to mark your pivot point on one side, the side that you're going to sew on. Mark your pivot point, which is 1/4 inch from that edge. And that's where you're going to pivot, so you know where the pivot point is on that. All right, so we're going to leave the tops of every piece open. Again, you're just going to go around the outside of them with a 1/4 inch seam. We're going to begin with our arms and continue on. I am not going to pin these, but you can if you'd like. That's better. All right, straight down that edge. Now you're going to do the same with all of them. Just go around each one. I'll do a foot just so you can see that pivot point. Again, you're going to leave the top of it open. Now if you're using a 1/4 inch foot, that notch is going to get caught there. Just give it a little lift up and then sew to that pivot point. Needle down and then around the outsides. And then straight up the back of the leg. All right, continue on with all of your pieces in the same manner. I'm going to show you how to clip these. And they all clip the same way. Just clip around the outside curve of the ear and the arms. Be careful not to snip into that seam. That would be trouble. All right, and then on the foot, you want to clip right here into the center and then around the toe and the heel both. And you want to do that before you turn it inside out. That helps that curve with the bulk. All right, just about done. All right, now we're going to stuff. So you want to use the end of a pencil. There are some fancy tools out there, and if you have one of those, feel free to use them. If not, I just use the end of a pencil and I get that started. And I push it right side out. And you can use this method with all the pieces. Again, you're making 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 ears. And with the end of that pencil, you're just going to run that eraser across the edge there, and it helps poke that seam out. With little bits of fluff, we're going to stuff with the end of our eraser into the arms and legs of each piece. Remember, no stuffing in the ears. All right, when that is finished, you will end up with 2 stuffed arms, legs, and ears. Again, no stuffing in the ears. All right, now we're ready to start putting our bunny together. Okay, with right sides together, we need to start with the bunny ears first. So you want to fold the bunny ear. And you're going to tack it in place. And this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is the bunny ear. So you want the inside of that fold to face the nose. Otherwise it looks like the ears are on backwards. And put a pin in. And we need to do the same with the other bunny ear. Fold it in half, and we're going to line that right on top of the other ear. Now, this is where it gets difficult because it doesn't really want to stay in place. You have to really give it some encouragement. I'm going to put a pin way back here so that it doesn't try to move my ears around. The ear has got to be the hardest part to sew on, and I have tried sewing one ear to each side and then lining up side and side, and every time I do it, I can't get it lined up right. So this is the easiest way, even though it's very thick and very difficult. Just do your best. So give that a little stitch here right across the top, and I can feel that shifting already. So let's give it a little poke. If you have a stiletto or the edge of your scissors, I'm going to get that pin out of the way because it's bugging me. And we're just going to give it, this is just a basting stitch over the top here where that ear is going to line up. And again, if you have a stiletto, just use the end of the stiletto just to keep it in place. All right. Now, we're going to clip those threads off, but we know our ears are in place. Okay? We're going to line up the front side, and we're going to match up the outside edges. We want to leave a hole open in the back, and that's to stuff our legs through. So around the curves with your pins. And just watch out that you don't sew those ears into any seams except the one there on the top. And you're going to sew from the edge here all the way around. Again, leaving a hole in his back so that we can stuff it. Okay, so we're going to start on this side. I can feel the ears are lined up right down here in the middle. And we're just going to go right around the body, again with your 1/4 inch. Be careful not to sew over any pins. I'm also going to put a little dot right there so I know where the neck is. And I can feel that ear tucked inside. Let's get it out of the way. Remember I said the ears are the hardest part, so take your time with it and you'll be real pleased with the results. That pin out. All right, and around the nose we go. Take your time. Again, I would should have shortened up my stitch length here. Okay, now over that big bump, you might want to take your 1/4 inch foot off, just that it allows it to go through a little easier. I don't have a stiletto, so I'm just going to use the end of the sharp pair of scissors here. Just make sure you don't stick your scissors or your stiletto over your needle. You don't want it to break your needle off. All right, you want to just double check that we're not going to catch the back side of the ear, the back side of the neck. So just make sure it's out of the way. All right, and this was my start and stopping point for the back with my hole. So I'm just going to give that a little back stitch so that when I'm stuffing it, I don't give it a tear. And then down here at the end, you're going to do the same thing. I can pull that pin out now. So a little back stitch, and then sew down to the edge. Okay, now let's give it some clipping here. So we're going to clip that apart. And then looks like we've caught everything beautifully. So we're going to give these a clip. Remember, like we did for the hand or the arms and the feet, we're going to give these just a tiny little clip so when we flip it inside out. I don't clip where you sewed the ears on. I don't see a need for that. You're going through too many thicknesses and that. It should be just fine on its own. Be sure and get the front of that neck though. Okay, so we've sewn around the perimeter of our bunny. We have the hole where our ears are sticking out a little bit, and we have the hole down here at the bottom where we're going to tuck our legs in. So let's tuck the legs in. Now when you put the legs on, you want to face the legs towards the belly and the nose, but they have to go in upside down like this. You're going to do one at a time, and you're going to stuff them into that bottom hole, and if you need to, they can come out the back hole because there's not much room inside the body at this point. So let the feet hang out. You need to bring the seams front to back, and then the leg just slips right into place. And there's just the right amount of room in there. Go ahead and let the leg stick out a little bit further. It gives it a little more play so that when the kids pull on them, it doesn't come apart. So give that a little pin right here, making sure that your front and your back are lined up. And I can feel that I'm going through a little bit of stuffing, and that's okay. And then you're going to line up your next one. And it doesn't matter if you stuff it in through the top and then pull it out through the back, or whether you want to bring it up through the hole and up through the top. Sort of like putting a skirt on. Do you pull it up over your knees or do you pull it over your head? It doesn't really matter. Either way it gets on. All right, so then we're going to put that seam. Remember, we've got to have one leg on one side of the seam and the other leg on the other side of the seam. Otherwise our bunny's going to look a little funny. So give that a little encouragement there. And we want to make sure that our legs are sticking out about the same distance. Otherwise, we're going to have one leg a little longer than the other. All right. And then we're just at the last minute going to double check that this seam is together. So we're going to drop another pin right there too. And yes, I'm an over pinner, and I'm okay with that. I don't want these pieces getting away from me here. When I'm finished manipulating those so that I'm happy with them being straight, I'm going to sew right across here at 1/4 of an inch seam. But before we sew that, let's just audition and make sure that we've got everything lined up right. So our ears are sticking out here. This is the back hole. And if we flip this forward, we know we're correct because our feet are facing our nose. So when we flip this right side out, everything's going to be lined up correctly. And I am definitely going to back stitch as I get started here. And pull your pins out carefully. Be sure not to stitch over any. And I've got one leg a little higher here on the end. There we go. Remove that pin, but keep my fingers on it. Get those ears out of the way. And a back stitch at the end. A nice generous back stitch so those legs don't try and sneak out. And now we're going to unfold our bunny. And if we have done him correctly, or her in this case, our ears and our nose, there's our belly right here, so our feet are facing the correct way. And let's give that a little nudge here with the end of a pencil. Let's get some fluff. And again, if we need to, we can just stuff it with the end of the pencil. Helps get it into the nose and the head. Make sure that head is nice and tight though. We want a lot of stuffing in there, otherwise the head tends to wobble over. And do little bits of stuffing at a time, seems to work better, otherwise you end up with a big knot in the neck. And then you're just going to sew that last hole up the back. And I use a ladder stitch, you can look that up if you'd like. So stuff it to its happiest fluff. Don't forget to make sure that you get the hips out here where the legs attach. And then you're just going to sew that seam shut. I'm going to show you with a little pin here. You're going to sew it shut. You don't need me to show you how to do that. So once you get it all stuffed and you get the back sewn on, now it's time to sew on the arms. So when you sew the arms on, you want to make a running stitch around the outside perimeter and make a gather. And then you're going to, and I would mark with a pencil. You can do this whichever way you want to, but mark with a pencil and line up where that should be on both sides. And then with a ladder stitch, you're going to attach the arm. Now you have your choice of attaching the arm in this direction or in this direction, and it's entirely up to you which way you like them. It's personal preference. And I would sew around the arm 3 times with that ladder stitch and just secure it. And just play with the way you stitch it on there, and it'll stay on. And you want to do both sides. Just make sure that if you've sewn one side on with the seam facing parallel to the body as opposed to side, just make sure that you sew them both on correctly, the same. And then you sew your whiskers on and your button eyes, and you can even put on a little cotton tail if you'd like. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial on how to make the bunny, and have a great happy day.